Fascinated. Opal is the only gemstone that stores light inside itself rather than simply reflecting it back. The play of color you see moving across the surface of a fine opal is produced by millions of microscopic spheres of hydrated silica, each one measuring between 100 and 300 nanometers in diameter, stacked in a precise three-dimensional grid that diffracts white light into its component spectrum. The geometry has to be nearly perfect. When the spheres are too irregular in size or too randomly arranged, the stone appears white or milky and shows no play of color at all. Only when the silica spheres are both uniform in size and orderly in their stacking does the stone produce the spectral fire that has made opal one of the most sought-after gems in the world for over 2,000 years. What most people do not know is that some of the finest opal ever discovered is on American soil, and the stories of how it formed are as dramatic as the stones themselves. The chemistry of opal formation begins with water. Silica, the same compound that makes up quartz and sand, dissolves readily in slightly alkaline groundwater and can travel long distances through rock formations before the conditions change and it begins to precipitate out of solution. When silica-laden water seeps into voids, fractures, and cavities in host rock, and then gradually evaporates or undergoes a change in chemistry, it deposits layers of silica gel that slowly dry, consolidate, and reorganize over millions of years into the sphere-stacked structure that produces opal. The process requires geological patience on a scale that makes it difficult to fully comprehend. Most gem opals took between 5 million and 15 million years to form, and the conditions that produce the color play variety are specific enough that the vast majority of silica deposits produce only common opal, which is the same material in a less ordered microstructure. The American opal deposits that matter geologically and commercially cluster in the Great Basin and Pacific Northwest, where a specific combination of volcanic history, hydrothermal systems, and long periods of chemical stability created the conditions for world-class material to develop. Virgin Valley in the northwestern corner of Nevada is the anchor of any serious discussion of American opal. The deposit sits in Humboldt County, near the Oregon border, in a volcanic landscape of rimrock and sagebrush that looks, at first approach, like a poor environment for gemstone formation. Roughly 15 million years ago, a series of volcanic eruptions buried an ancient forest under thick layers of ash and volcanic debris. Groundwater percolating through the volcanic deposits carried silica in solution, and over the following millions of years, that silica gradually replaced the organic material of the buried wood, cell by cell, molecule by molecule, while also filling the surrounding void spaces with opal. The result is a deposit that contains not just opal occurring in volcanic matrix, but opalized wood in some of the finest preservation and play of color quality found anywhere on Earth. Virgin Valley opals are predominantly black and crystal in body tone, meaning the background of the stone is dark enough that the spectral colors appear against a deep field that intensifies their visual impact dramatically. The Roebling opal, donated to the Smithsonian Institution and currently on display in the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., came from Virgin Valley and weighs 2,585 carats, making it one of the largest and finest black opals in any public collection in the world. Virgin Valley opal comes with a complication that has frustrated collectors and gem cutters for as long as the deposit has been worked. Because the opal formed within a matrix that still contains significant moisture, and because the stones retain a high water content relative to opals from other world deposits, Virgin Valley material is extremely prone to crazing, the development of a network of surface cracks that appears after the stone is removed from the ground and begins to dry. A stone that appears flawless at the moment of extraction can develop crazing lines within hours, days, or weeks of being brought to the surface. Some stones crazed in transit, some crazed in museum cases. The Roebling opal itself is kept in a controlled humidity environment at the Smithsonian precisely because of this vulnerability. The water content in Virgin Valley opal typically runs between 3 and 20% by weight, compared to 1 to 6% in Australian opals that are far more stable under ambient conditions. The most spectacular Virgin Valley stones that have survived intact without crazing are considered exceptionally rare, and their survival is partly a matter of the specific chemistry of the individual stone and partly a matter of luck. Collectors who work the 3 commercial mines that allow public digging at Virgin Valley, including Rainbow Ridge, Royal Peacock, and Bonanza Opal, store freshly collected material in water or glycerin for months or years before attempting to cut it, hoping that the slow equilibration reduces the crazing rate. Some experienced Virgin Valley diggers accept that a large fraction of the finest stones they pull from the ground will not survive in cuttable condition, and they collect accordingly, knowing that the material which does stabilize will be among the most extraordinary opal produced anywhere in the country. The mines at Virgin Valley are worked by hand and by small mechanized equipment in a manner that has changed relatively little since commercial digging began in the early 20th century. The opal occurs in horizontally bedded layers of dark carbonaceous shale interbedded with volcanic tuff, and productive zones are typically 1 to 3 feet thick at depths ranging from a few inches at the surface to more than 60 feet in developed pit walls. Miners use picks, shovels, and small rock hammers to work the matrix carefully, looking for the telltale color in the dark rock that indicates a piece of opal. Experienced Virgin Valley miners develop an eye for the subtle variations in the color and texture of the host matrix that suggest where opalized material is likely to occur, and experienced hands claim they can feel through the resistance in the pick against the rock when they are approaching a productive zone. The commercial mines operate on a fee-dig basis during summer months, charging daily access fees and allowing visitors to keep a portion or all of what they find, depending on the specific mine's rules. The material most commonly encountered at the public dig sites includes common opal, opalized wood without significant color play, and small pieces of color play opal in the 1 to 5 carat range that are unlikely to survive crazing, but are valuable as display specimens in water. Fire opal represents a fundamentally different category of American opal material in terms of its chemistry, its appearance, and its geological origin. Unlike precious opal, which derives its appeal from the diffraction-based play of color, fire opal is a transparent to translucent material with a body color ranging from pale yellow through rich orange to deep red, and its visual impact comes from this saturated body color rather than from internal spectral play. The name refers to the color rather than to any structural similarity to precious opal, and fine material from the best deposits is compared favorably to fine Mexican fire opal, which is the globally recognized benchmark for the variety. American fire opal occurs in volcanic settings across several western states, with Oregon and Nevada producing the most commercially significant material. The Spencer area of Idaho is another historically productive location, where fire opal occurs in a rhyolite matrix that also hosts common opal and occasional precious opal. The formation conditions for fire opal are consistent with its volcanic association. Silica-rich hydrothermal fluids moving through rhyolite and other silicic volcanic rocks deposit opal in fractures and vesicles, the gas bubbles left in cooling lava, at temperatures and pressures that produce the dense, transparent structure of fire opal rather than the more porous common opal. The iron content responsible for the orange and red colors in fine fire opal is present in trace quantities that the silica incorporates during deposition, and variations in iron concentration across a single deposit can produce stones ranging from pale yellow to deep blood orange in color within the same field. Oregon produces fire opal from several localities, most of which are in the volcanic uplands of the central and eastern portions of the state. The Owyhee region along the Oregon-Idaho border, which takes its name from a corruption of the word Hawaii and honors 3 Hawaiian members of an early American fur trading expedition who disappeared in the area in 1819, contains opal deposits that have been worked by collectors since at least the 1930s. Owyhee opal occurs in basalt flows and in the sedimentary deposits associated with ancient Lake Idaho, a large Pliocene-era lake that once covered much of the Snake River plain. The material ranges from common white opal to blue lavender dendritic opal to occasional transparent fire opal in the yellow to orange range. The dendritic patterns in some Owyhee material, produced by manganese oxide crystals growing within the opal matrix, create abstract visual textures that have made the material popular with lapidaries who cut it as a collector stone rather than as a commercial gem. Nevada fire opal occurs in several counties across the central and southern part of the state, often associated with the same volcanic terrains that host turquoise, chalcedony, and other silica-rich secondary minerals in the Basin and Range province. Wood opal, sometimes called opalized wood, is among the most visually striking geological materials that opal chemistry produces, and the American West contains some of the finest examples known. The process by which wood becomes opalized is a specific form of permineralization, the general mechanism by which organic material is replaced by minerals during fossilization. In opalization, silica in solution penetrates the cellular structure of buried wood before significant decay has taken place and deposits within the cell walls, cell cavities, and the spaces between cells in a process so precise that the original wood structure is preserved at a microscopic level in the finished opal. A polished section of fine opalized wood, examined under magnification, reveals the tracheids, ray cells, and growth rings of the original tree, reproduced in silica with a fidelity that can allow botanists to identify the species of wood that form the matrix of the opal. The play of color in opalized wood occurs when the silica that replaced the wood has the uniform sphere structure of precious opal rather than the disordered structure of common opal, and the wood can display the full range of body tones and color patterns seen in non-wood opal. Virgin Valley is again the primary American source, where the opalized forest logs described earlier produce not only matrix opal, but freestanding pieces of opalized wood that can be sliced and polished to reveal both the cellular structure of the original wood and the spectral play of color moving through it simultaneously. Nevada, Oregon, Idaho, and Washington all have documented occurrences of opalized wood beyond the Virgin Valley material. Much of the opalized wood found across the Pacific Northwest formed during the same volcanic events that created the Columbia River Basalt Group, a series of massive flood basalt eruptions between 17 and 6 million years ago that covered vast areas of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho under successive lava flows. Trees buried by these flows were sometimes preserved in silica-rich volcanic waters percolating through the cooling basalt, and the opalization that resulted produced material now scattered across a wide geographic area. The quality of most Pacific Northwest opalized wood falls short of Virgin Valley material in terms of play of color intensity, but fine common opal replacement of wood with excellent cellular preservation is found widely, and occasional pieces with genuine precious opal replacement are known from several counties in Oregon and Washington. Lapidaries prize well-preserved opalized wood, regardless of whether it displays color play, because the combination of wood structure and the visual properties of opal creates a material that demonstrates the mechanics of geological time in a single polished surface. The Nevada opal picture extends well beyond Virgin Valley into a broad landscape of secondary deposits that collectively make Nevada the most opal productive state in the country by number of localities. Virtually every county in the state has documented opal occurrences, reflecting the extensive volcanic history of the Basin and Range province and the abundant hydrothermal systems that operated throughout the region during the Miocene and Pliocene epochs. The Lander County area of central Nevada has produced both common opal and occasional precious opal in connection with the same volcanic and hydrothermal systems that make the region one of the most productive precious metals mining districts in the country. Elko County in northeastern Nevada, best known geologically for its gold deposits, contains opal occurrences in volcanic terrains that have been prospected by collectors for decades. The Virgin Valley District in Humboldt County remains the most commercially significant of Nevada's opal localities, but the collector who is willing to explore less developed areas of the state with appropriate geological maps and land status information will find the landscape rich with secondary opal occurrences that are largely unexplored. Most of these secondary Nevada localities produce material that is not commercially viable for faceting or cabochon cutting, but that has genuine scientific and collector interest, and the state's public land system makes much of this territory accessible to prospectors under standard mineral collection regulations. The broader story of American opal also includes historically important localities and states that do not typically appear in conversations about opal mining. Louisiana has produced a distinctive material called prairie opal, a translucent white to bluish opal associated with Miocene-age sedimentary deposits along the Gulf Coast. Texas has documented opal occurrences in volcanic terrains in the Trans-Pecos region, including the Chisos Mountains area. California, which has an enormous diversity of mineral localities reflecting its complex geological history, contains opal occurrences in volcanic rocks throughout the Coast Ranges and in the Sierra Nevada foothills. The California material is generally of collector rather than commercial grade, but historically significant finds, including seam opal in San Luis Obispo County and precious opal in several volcanic localities in the northern part of the state, have been documented in the geological literature. Arizona, often associated with other gem minerals, has produced opal in the volcanic rocks of the Central Highlands, and the state's collector community has documented productive localities that rarely appear in mainstream gem literature because the quantities available do not support commercial development. The market for American opal occupies a specific niche that is different from the markets for Australian, Ethiopian, or Brazilian material. Australian boulder opal and white opal from Lightning Ridge and Cooper Petty set the commercial benchmark for precious opal in terms of both quality range and volume, and Ethiopian opal from the Wilo deposits has captured a significant share of the commercial market since becoming widely available in the 2000s. American opal, including Virgin Valley black opal, cannot compete on volume with these sources, and the crazing instability of Virgin Valley material specifically eliminates it from the mainstream gem trade that requires stones to be stable under normal display and wear conditions. What drives genuine collector interest in American material is provenance. A fine Virgin Valley black opal with documented locality information from a named mine is a specimen with a specific geological story attached to it, including the most spectacular known North American opal occurrence, a buried Miocene forest preserved in one of the most color-rich gem materials that chemistry produces. Collector specimens from Virgin Valley, particularly opalized wood with good play of color and opalized fossil shells that occasionally occur in the same deposit, command prices that reflect rarity rather than gem commercial competition. Stabilized Virgin Valley stones that have survived sufficient storage time to reduce their crazing risk and then cut successfully are considered significant finds in the collector market. The collecting and prospecting culture around American opal is active, regional, and in many places deeply personal. Fee dig operations at Virgin Valley have been running continuously for decades and have created a community of returning visitors who come back year after year, building relationships with mine operators and with other collectors who share the obsession. Stories circulate among Virgin Valley veterans about legendary digs, about stones found in the last hour of a long day, about pieces that looked ordinary in the ground and revealed spectacular color when wet. Rockhound clubs in Oregon, Nevada, and Idaho organize field trips to public land opal localities that are productive enough to justify the effort of a day in the desert, but obscure enough that collecting pressure has not exhausted the material. The mineral collecting community that engages seriously with American opal understands that the material requires patience and a different relationship to expectations than most other gemstone collecting. You are not guaranteed to find cuttable precious opal on a given day at a given locality. What you will find consistently is geological evidence of these specific events, the volcanism, the hydrothermal chemistry, the slow accumulation of silica in ancient rock that produced one of the most optically complex materials in the mineral world, in a landscape that still carries the character of the processes that made it.